let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings because I do want to touch on them. Yes. I know we've kind of danced around it a little bit. Let's just flat out talk about it.
Yes, please.
Are you concerned after this loss? And they travel to LA to face the Rams now. So, like you said, 3 games back to back. Like, where do you stand with the Vikings after this performance tonight?
I'm definitely concerned. So, I would say me and you probably were the more cautious of anybody that talks about sports or has a YouTube channel about jumping on the Vikings bandwagon. Now, we both love Kevin O'Connell. We both agree he's one of the best coaches in the league, no doubt about it. The question
Especially
was
at his age.
Oh, of course. The question was always the Sam Darnold regression. And I said early in the season, remember, he came out like 2 or 3 weeks into the season, was playing real good. You said, hey, you ready to back off that take? I said, nah, man, we are riding it till the wheels come off. And then a couple weeks ago, I was like, I don't know, we might have to back off that take. You said, I'm not letting go yet. Finally, we have waited all season for the Sam Darnold regression. It waited till the 12 o'clock hour, right when the clock struck doom, and here it is. He delivered an absolutely abysmal performance. And I don't want to be too hard on him because he's had an incredible season, but a lot of the Vikings' issue tonight, Ryan, really boiled down to quarterback play. It wasn't all on him. Obviously, the defense didn't do him any favors. They couldn't really get a run game going. The wide open miss to Jordan Addison, sailing balls to Justin Jefferson, holding on to the ball too long, taking sacks. It was just a Sam Darnold special tonight. And to me, it looked like he felt the pressure of the moment. And for the first time this season, he kind of cracked under the pressure.
Yeah, so does that carry over into these playoff games now that nobody is looking at this game? Because this game, like I said, was hyped up for 3 weeks. I mean, it was the marquee game that everybody wanted to look at. But now that that's passed and he's had the rough game, he's had the really bad game, do you think that it kind of changes a little bit? Do you think it changes up? Or do you think he kind of maintains this now the weight of the playoffs are on him and it's just going to make him succumb to a lot more bad quarterback play?
That's honestly a great question. It's like now that, in a weird way, now that the pressure's off of him.
Yeah, spotlight's kind of turned, and I'll tell you where it's going to face, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's going to face to the Ravens. I'll tell you that. That's where the spotlight's going to be.
Sure. Well, even just saying the NFC, people were doubting Detroit because the injuries, thinking they couldn't do it. Vikings were on a roll. Now, Detroit's done it. They've won. All the pressure's back on Detroit to deliver that first Super Bowl. Yeah. You do wonder, like, now that the pressure is off of the Vikings, can they cruise through that? I'll just go ahead and tell you, I think we can talk about the games a little bit later. I do think there's a very good shot they beat the Rams. I like the Rams. I just don't know if the Rams have the offensive firepower to really compete with some of these top-tier playoff teams. I mean, they're so reliant on Puka Nacua. So I could see the Vikings beating the Rams. I could maybe even see them beat another team. But if they get into the NFC Championship against Detroit or against Philadelphia, because they're going to be on the road the entire playoffs, I don't think I see Sam Darnold go into the Link or go into Ford Field and winning with the Super Bowl on the line. I don't. I think the pressure being taken off of them or the spotlight being taken off of them might help them next week. I don't know how far that carries because it does kind of feel like they've been exposed. I know it's a division rival. I'm not saying Minnesota couldn't make a Super Bowl run. They absolutely could. They are still talented enough. But when you get beat like that, in prime time, in what is a literal playoff game, the difference between the 1 and the 5 seed, that's tough, man. You're going to be licking your wounds all the way to the playoffs.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice that when the playoffs are here, because like you said, this is essentially a playoff game, right? I mean, we can just call it what it is. It's kind of the preliminary playoff game. I couldn't help but notice that not only did Sam Darnold take a huge step back and regressed at this game, but it wasn't just him. It was the offensive line. It was the coaching. It was the play calling. I just feel like one team was so much more prepared, that being the Lions, than the Vikings were. And I think that's inexcusable. Like when you've known that this game is coming up on your calendar for the past 3 weeks, there's no excuse for playing this bad. And I don't think I have the faith in them to go in and beat Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay at LA. Like I don't see that happening. I think LA is just stacked in the offense. I think they'll outscore them. I think the Vikings could put up points, but I just think that the Rams are going to outscore the Vikings next week. I could be wrong, and I know I'll hear it in the comment section, I'm sure, but there's a possibility that the Rams could just put their foot on the throat of the Vikings and just choke them out, man.
I don't think that can happen because the Rams haven't been able to put up points against anybody except for that game against the Bills. I know, but that's a one-off at this point.
But Matthew Stafford in the playoffs and Cooper Kupp in the playoffs and Sean McVay in the playoffs are just different. Buddy, they're just different.
Cooper Kupp's washed. Let's just be honest. He is not who he used to be.
Oh, you're going to get so much flack for that.
Watch the fall games. He's the water boy.
I don't think he's washed. He's not as good as he once was. I get that. I just don't think he's washed.
He is washed. The Rams offense counts on Puka Nacua. It lives and dies by Puka Nacua. We'll see how much he can do. But not to get too far off that, last point on Minnesota. You said it felt like one team was prepared tonight and one team wasn't, and you used the word inexcusable. I thought maybe that was a bit harsh, but you're right, especially too because it's a division rival. And you think like, oh, a division rival, those are tough games. You can lose those. But you shouldn't lose them like this. I mean, how many times have we seen Kansas City taken down to the wire by the Raiders, by, the Broncos? The Bills and the Patriots play tight games sometimes. The Bills and the Jets. Division rivals are supposed to know you so well that they're able to keep you in close games even when you are mismatched talent-wise. And if you had asked most people, I think most people would have said Minnesota probably had the edge on talent if you just looked at the roster lineups going into this Sunday night game, considering the injuries and everything. So for Minnesota to come in and be that unprepared, like you said, it wasn't just Sam Darnold. It was the offensive line. It was the receivers. Jefferson wasn't on his game. Hawkinson wasn't really on his game. Take it to the other side of the ball too, Ryan. Minnesota's defense has been really good against the rush, and Jahmyr Gibbs just absolutely destroyed them. It wasn't just the lack of offensive production, it was the inability for the defense to get any kind of stops, any kind of momentum. It was clear pretty early on in the game that Sam Darnold and the Vikings offense needed a spark. Someone needed to provide Minnesota a spark in that game, and literally no one was able to do it.
The fun fact is that the Lions and Vikings played in Week 7. I think the Lions scored 31 points then, too. So not only is this inexcusable, you've been here before. You've played them once already.
And that was a close game.
And it was a very close game. And now it looks like one team did their homework and you didn't.